So I bet if you're a nerd like me, the first time you got a Raspberry Pi, you thought, what if I could install Windows on this machine? Microsoft recently released a version of Windows that can run on ARM processors, which is exactly what the Raspberry Pi has to achieve its very small size and its very low power consumption. So I decided to search up a tutorial, followed all the steps, downloaded the Windows ISO, ran all the files, and I got it installed. And I gotta say, the experience is absolutely horrible. The setup of Windows on the Pi was incredibly easy. First of all I had to do was download a batch installer that prepared the ISO file, and then I just installed the software that was specifically designed for Raspberry Pi. It took the ISO file, basically installed Windows just the way that you do if you'd insert a CD, plus it fetched all the drivers for the Raspberry Pi and got it all configured and set up beautifully. It was really cool to see all the engineering and the time that somebody took just to make sure the Windows could be installed on the Pi. That entire setup took about 2.5 hours to complete. If you have a low bandwidth network connection, that might serve a big problem. First of all, the second problem that I ran into was when I actually powered on the Raspberry Pi and booted onto the partition on the SD card that held Windows. It took an incredibly long time, probably about 20-30 minutes, just to set up all the devices. And then once it actually got into the out-of-box experience, I ran into a plethora of problems. First of all, it took a very long time just to load the next page, probably about 2 to 5 minutes, which would normally take about 10 to 15 seconds. I expected it to be slow, but not that slow. Second of all, the OOB presented with a lot of errors. I would tell it the region that I wanted. It would wait about 5 minutes or so and then say, oh, there's a problem trying to set up your keyboard settings. The next page gave me a similar issue. Where it really stopped me in my tracks was right before I got to that page where Microsoft gives you the privacy settings. That was unable to load again, but in this case I wasn't able to skip it. So the first thing I did was I unplugged the Pi. Although the Windows install was still intact, I had to go through the entire out-of-box experience again. So I had to wait through all that one more time, and it gave me the same problem. Probably about 2 or 3 times clicking try again, I was able to actually get to those settings. Then the first time I got through the entire setup, some odd reason the out-of-box experience decided to start all over again. Third time's a charm, I guess. But then I finally got into Windows, and boy was that a relief. But I was not able to do much at all. It probably takes about 30 seconds just to right click. That normally takes a few milliseconds. Even a slow computer. Even a computer running Windows 95. And this, I know, has a lot more power than a 486. There's a problem with, I'd say, the SD card. The flash storage here is incredibly slow. Maybe if you got a faster SD card, it'd be a bit better, but most of the time you don't really have a need to run one of those. And I just lost my card. What did I do? You know, a lot of people think that having an SD card means that it's just like an SSD. Absolutely not. NAND storage that SSDs use is completely different than the flash storage that SD cards use. These are not designed to boot an operating system. And second of all, it has less than a gigabyte of RAM. Pretty sure Windows is having to swap a lot of data between the SD card and the built-in memory on the Pi. Since the storage is so slow, that just creates such a big bottleneck trying to even deal with that swap file. Just an incredibly slow experience, especially when you try and launch more than one program. Let me show you how horrible it is. So I'm going to go and boot off of the partition on the SD card that has Windows installed in it, and the boot process from UFeed to the usable login interface doesn't take that long, probably only about 1.5 to 2 minutes, but once you get to the login interface, then it takes a lot longer. Alright, so it looks like we are about ready. We have a mouse cursor. Starting up all the services and getting the user credentials takes a big toll, especially on that SD card. Should automatically log me in. One interesting thing is that there are 3 accounts on this computer because I had to restart the OOB 3 times. Once that crashed, it still saves that information. So we are almost to the Windows desktop. This is what takes the longest, honestly. We got our desktop background. Is our taskbar loaded in yet? Nope, the taskbar actually has to load independently, apparently. And if I just try and right-click, it honestly just crippled the system. Just trying to load in all the data right here. Yeah, I'm in a pretty bad situation right now. Oh, there you go. There's the right-click. Doesn't even look like I can click on the start button. Just go and click on it. That's all I'm going to do. Just go and click. And there we go. That took almost like 20 seconds just to bring up the start menu. As you can see right here, scrolling also is pretty slow. It has to, load it in a bit more, I guess. The bottleneck of the CPU though is with these animations. It's a bit laggy there, and especially with the mail. What I want to show you guys right now is Device Manager, just to show you that a lot of these drivers were provided by somebody else that had to write these drivers just for the Raspberry Pi, which I think is absolutely incredible. But there are also some drivers that aren't working. I guess that's for like some of the proprietary buses, like the pinout it has on the side and the different ribbon ports that it has. And I do have to tell you, it does get a bit faster once everything is loaded in, but once you fill up that memory, you're gonna have to go back to the SD card and swap that data, and that's when it gets really slow again. So I can like go and show you that it detects that it's an ARM64 based computer, and very interestingly, you can see that they did actually have to write a specific Raspberry Pi controller for this SD card. This SDIO device doesn't have a driver, and there's also some unknown devices. Moving around the window, it's also pretty laggy. It suggests that the graphics are having to get memory from the system memory, and that is creating a very laggy situation. But Aero Snap kind of works. I wouldn't want to have to deal with this to do anything at all. Next, I want to open up Task Manager just to show you that at idle, it's taking up a lot of the CPU. Nah, loaded up pretty quickly. Just loading up Task Manager took up like 100% of the CPU, and just sitting at idle, it's already taking up 37%. I'm going to go and open up the File Manager now. This is actually one of the applications that run pretty well. So I can pop on over to this PC, pop onto the C drive right here. In the Windows folder, there's something really interesting going on. It has both program files for ARM, but it also has program files for x86. And if you install a program, all the files go to the program files folder. And saying that it has an x86 folder means that all these x86 applications, they can install on ARM. And I think that's honestly amazing. Whenever you install EPCAM or OBS or whatever, it goes right into that folder. If you remember back into the Windows RT days, you could only install apps from the Microsoft Store because the ARM architecture can decode the code written for x86 architecture. But since Microsoft put a compatibility layer in place that'll translate the x86 code and write it into ARM instructions, that allows you to run all these different applications. I already have EPCAM installed, and I'm going to try and install another application for you right now. If I insert this USB drive, it does in fact pick up on USB devices, but it is pretty slow also just to detect. I can view the folder structure. It's all pretty speedy, and if I pop on over to x86 programs, I can run any of these installers. And these were all installers that I pulled right off of my computer. I didn't download these for ARM, I just downloaded them for Windows. As you can see, I have a UAC. It just boots up just like normal. I can go through the setup like I normally would. I can choose my install location, and by default it chooses that program files x86 folder, and it's extracting all the regular DLLs. And this is going to take a lot longer than it normally would on most computers. I think that the CPU is pretty limited right here just by that clock speed. I could easily install most of these applications on Linux. Not only would it run a lot faster, I'd be able to have a lot more control over exactly what I was doing. The Raspberry Pi is great for emulation and installing Linux specific like web servers. Windows just doesn't fit into them. It was never designed to be a Windows computer. This is a brand new development that came out years and years after I even bought this Raspberry Pi, and seeing all these x86 applications run, it's just really cool. So I was one of the people that bought a Surface RT, and I was just really disappointed to see that none of my applications could run, but to see it now actually happen on ARM, I just think that's amazing. The VLC installer finished. That took probably around 5 minutes, so I'm going to click on finish, and it should be running the VLC program. Come on now. Oh, that's slow. I am getting impatient. Oh my gosh, the VLC, and it's not responding. major problem with this is not the operating system, it's the hardware that it's running on. It's so slow that you basically can't get much use out of it. But there you go, guys. That is an x86 application running on ARM using a Raspberry Pi using Windows. Though it might have been a waste of time, honestly. I really enjoyed checking it out. I would not recommend that you guys go out and do it. You got to see all the action right here. And now I can happily wipe the SD card and reinstall Linux on it. Again, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next video.